Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 6, 2015, the gentleman from California, Mr. Garamendi, is recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. The attention of the House is drawn to many, many issues this week. Certainly the tragedy in Oregon draws all of our attention, our sympathy, but unfortunately not our vote. We've never really had a vote here on the floor of the House to deal with this issue of gun safety, although legislation has been passed around for many, many times. Even the most conservative columnists are now saying that we must take action, and we really should. So I'll just start by asking all of our colleagues to let's vote. Vote up or down on the various proposals that have been made. And certainly the attention of this body is turned to the question of who's going to be the next speaker. It seems to occupy most of the discussion and most of the articles in the newspapers around this town. And it's important. But there are many, many other issues that come before the House. Some of them are really going to affect America. And I want to talk about one of them today, and it's in the context of something we've been discussing here for the last 4 or 5 years. We call it Make It in America. It's about rebuilding the American manufacturing sector. It's about rebuilding the American middle class. It's about creating jobs in America by doing what we once did so very, very well, which is manufacture, make things, big things, little things, all kinds of things. And so we call it our Make It in America agenda. And I'm going to go through it very quickly here, and then focus on one piece of this agenda. Here it is, trade policies. This is going to take a lot of time to discuss this. We're not going to go into it today, but the President announced just in the last couple of days that the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal is done. Now, we don't know what's in it. We have, at least I have, great concerns about this, and that it will be one more step in hollowing out the American manufacturing sector. But it's all secret. We don't know yet. We'll find out soon enough, and we'll undoubtedly come back and talk about trade. Taxes and tax policies, I'll hit on this in a few moments. Labor issues, well, that ties back to the trade issue and whether we're going to send more of our jobs overseas. Education, research, infrastructure. So today I really want to focus on this, energy and infrastructure. So if you bear with me a few moments, I want to go into this in some detail. For many, many years, we've tried to make America energy independent. And in the last 5 years, 6 years now, we have seen an enormous increase in the production of energy in the United States. Now, a lot of that energy has come from green technologies, solar and wind and biofuels and many other ways of producing renewable energy called green energy. And that's good because all of that reduces greenhouse gas emissions. And we need to do more of it. And frankly, we need tax policy. Maybe I'll put this back up again. Can I point out the way in which the Make It in America agenda fits all of this? Tax policy has a great deal to do with green energy. There are tax breaks for solar installation on your home, solar installation for businesses, the production tax credit for wind and solar. All of these things make it really possible to advance the green energy agenda. Tax policy also has a great deal to do with the other part of our energy independence. Not quite there, but we're making great advances on it. And that has to do with petroleum products, natural gas, and crude oil. Much talk about the Balkan revolution in the Wyoming and North Dakota, producing a lot of energy. We're talking about different techniques to extract oil, enhanced oil production, otherwise known as fracking. All of these things have led to an explosion, well, literally in the case of the Balkan fuel, because it is highly volatile and it does explode when trains tip over. But what we're talking about here is an explosion in the volume of oil produced in America and natural gas. We have literally doubled the production of natural gas and oil over the last 5 to 6 years, bringing down the cost of fuel. Also around the world, the slowdown of Chinese economy and Europe have reduced the demand for oil, and we're seeing a reduced price of oil on the world market, even at a time when we're seeing more and more production of crude oil and natural gas here in the United States. So what's all this mean to the oil industry, to the petroleum industry? It means they've got a lot of oil, and the United States is not consuming all of it, or as much as they would like, to keep the prices up. So guess what they want to do? They want to export oil. Whoa, isn't that something? How do we become energy independent if we are exporting oil? Well, they've got a lot of interesting economic arguments about how that could be done, and I'm going, I don't think so. I don't think it's in the interest of the United States to take a strategic national asset, natural gas, crude oil, and export it to China. May be good for China, certainly be good for the energy industry, the petroleum industry. Wow, they got a new market. You see, right now, there is a federal ban on the export of crude oil to other countries, with the exception of Mexico and Canada. We swap crude oil back and forth. A little bit of crude oil is also shipped out of the United States from the North Slope of Alaska. And a very interesting law was established back in the 70s when there was this energy crisis and there were long lines at the gasoline pump. And that law said, no, you cannot export crude oil. And then later in the 1990s, there was a little opening provided for Mexico and Canada and for Alaska North Slope oil. It could be shipped to other countries, exported, with this caveat: cannot increase domestic oil prices. I don't know that that was ever enforced. We certainly saw the gasoline prices zip to the top last year, and now it's coming back down, and that's good. Bad that it went up, good that it's coming down. But I don't think the Department of Energy or the Department of Commerce really enforced what was in the law about the export of crude oil from Alaska. So we've got this strategic asset, natural gas and crude oil, that has allowed us to have a resurgence of American manufacturing. They're coming home. American manufacturers are coming home to make it in America. Dow, big chemical operation, coming back to America because natural gas prices are low. Other companies doing the same thing because the United States has a strategic advantage as a result of a strategic asset or assets, oil and natural gas, together with the green energy. So what's the petroleum industry want to do? They want to ruin all of that. They want to take these strategic assets and ship them overseas. This week, the House of Representatives is going to take up a piece of legislation that opens the spigot for the export of crude oil. There's already an open spigot for the export of natural gas, and I'll come to that in a few moments. So is this in the interest of the United States? Well, if you're in the oil patch, North Dakota, Texas, maybe even California, maybe it's good. Maybe you'll be able to make a little more money, but at the expense of who? America. American consumers at the pump, truckers, trains, all of those use diesel produced here in the United States from our refineries. So good for the petroleum industry, but bad for America. We ought not do that. And if you would consider for a few moments that should we ever allow the export of crude oil, we ought to put some serious caveats on that piece of legislation. But just today, the Rules Committee of this House decided, no caveats, just a bare bill, open the spigot, send the crude oil overseas. To heck, don't worry about the price of fuel. Don't worry about the price of energy in the United States. Worry about the bottom line of the petroleum industry. I say time out. Wait a minute. This is America. This is about the American economy. This is about men and women that go to the gas pump and buy gasoline, farmers out there having to buy diesel in order to plow their fields and harvest their crops, trains moving goods and services back across the United States, the airline industry. This is not just about the petroleum industry. This is a big deal for America. If we take a strategic national asset and just allow it to go anywhere in the world so that it is to the benefit of a small but important slice of the American economy, we're making a big mistake. So let me just put some caveats on this piece of legislation. Harken back to the Alaska situation back in 1995 where they opened the spigot. They put in a caveat that said, no, can't do it if it results in an adverse effect of the price of transportation fuels and home heating fuels in the United States. Does the legislation we have this week have any caveats on it? No, it doesn't have that one. Let me give you another caveat. If we're going to ship a strategic national asset overseas, why don't we look at other strategic assets in the United States? Shipbuilding. The entire United States Navy is dependent upon American shipyards for all of their ships. And those shipyards really no longer produce large ocean-going commercial vessels. All of that's been off to China, off to Korea, Japan. All of those countries subsidize those shipyards. We don't do it in the United States. But if we put a caveat on the export of this crude oil and simply say, if we are going to export crude oil, caveat one, not at the expense of American consumers, not at the expense of American refiners, another strategic asset, the refinery of these petroleum products, and three, ship it on American-built ships with American mariners. Right now there's over 400,000 men and women working in the shipyards, producing ships, smaller ships for trade within the coastal zone of the United States and for the barges up and down the rivers and canals of the United States, but not building ocean-going tankers. What does it mean? Well, let me just give you an example. It's been estimated that the maximum amount of oil that could be shipped is somewhere about 3.6 million barrels a day. That's at the top level. Hopefully, they'll never get close to that because that's almost certain to raise prices. But let's say that they do. It would take, for the largest tanker currently on the ocean today, these are the maximum tankers, too large to even go through the new Panama Canal, larger than the Panamax ships. It would take 180 ships to handle 3.6 million barrels of oil a day. What if those ships were American-built ships? This isn't Saudi Arabian oil. This isn't Iraqi oil, Venezuelan oil. This is American oil. What if we required that that oil be shipped on American ships, and suddenly our shipyards over the next decade or two were to build 180 supertankers? Or if they're Panamax-sized ships, 384 Panamax-sized ships. Think of the employment that would take place in the American shipyards, and then through the entire supply chain, all of the engines, all of the communications, all of the electronics, all of the pumps, all of the valves. We could see a resurgence in American manufacturing. Who benefits from this? Americans benefit. Americans benefit. in the shipyards, in the manufacturing facilities all across this nation. But no, we're not going to do that here on the House floor. We're going to simply take a bill that opens the spigot, that gives the benefits to the oil patch, to the petroleum industry, and I'm not saying that's not good for them. There'll certainly be jobs. There'll be some construction jobs, and there'll be oil rigs that will have to be built, and that's good. But think what we could do if we had a law that said, okay, we're going to ship, but we're going to protect the domestic price of refined products. We're going to protect the American refineries, and we're going to build American ships, and we're going to put American mariners on those ships. We're talking about tens of thousands, if not 100,000 new jobs in the United States. That's a good thing for the middle class. That's a good thing for America. And we can do it by simply amending the oil export bill. But it's not going to happen. The majority here isn't going to allow that. They're simply going to pass a bill that opens the spigot. Shame. Shame on all of us that we would allow that to happen. Shame on us that we don't protect the American consumer. Shame on us that we do not protect the American maritime industry, the shipyards of America, the American middle class. But, hey, watch closely. Watch closely. It's going to happen. It's going to happen here on the House floor this week, while all of the attention of America is looking at this speakership thing. Okay, that's where we are on one critical issue. I want to take up one more, and then I think we'll call it a night. Do you know what that is? That's a new Amtrak locomotive for the Eastern Corridor. And it's 100% American made. Why is it 100% American made for the first time in decades? Well, at least a decade and a half, that the United States is once again producing locomotives. Oh, by the way, that's made near my district in Sacramento, about, 4 or 5 miles from the edge of my district. Several hundred men and women are employed doing this. Why did this happen? Because the Congress wrote policy that said your taxpayer dollars are going to be used not to buy a locomotive made in China or Japan or Europe, but to buy a locomotive made in America. Made in America. Your tax dollars being used to build locomotives in America. It's part of a transportation policy, which is where I want to go now. Oh, but before I do, I guess I forgot to pull this one up. That is a liquefied natural gas tanker. I was just talking about crude oil and what could be done, but this is another one. If we're going to export our natural gas, that strategic asset, it ought to be exported on American-made tankers, liquefied natural tankers. A new facility is opening down in Texas to export liquefied natural gas. And that facility will take 100 tankers for that one facility. Oh, not to worry, those tankers are going to be made in China, Japan, Korea. They're not going to be made in America. But under 16 lines of law, all we need to do is write 16 lines of law. We would be manufacturing these tankers in the United States. Same argument that I made about the crude oil tankers. I won't go into it in any more detail. This is one of the great could-dos, should-dos, ought-to-do for America. So the export of these strategic national assets, natural gas, petroleum, why don't we build them in America? Why don't we make it in America? Okay. I started to talk about the locomotives. October 29th. Let's see, that's just about, 23 days from today. The Highway Trust Fund is out of money. And once again, we're on one of those cliffs, this time a transportation cliff. And we got to do something. And so what are we going to do? The President proposed the Grow America Act, and it provides money for our crumbling transportation system, the infrastructure. There's a rail portion of it, locomotives, improving the rail system. There's buses, ports, bridges, and highways. It's a very, very good piece of legislation. It's $476 billion over the next 6 years. It's a big deal. It helps America come from number, I think, 18th in the infrastructure capability compared to other nations of the world. China has, 5,000, 3,000 miles of high-speed rail. The United States have 0. Chinese airports, Japanese airports. I think even Cuba's now in the process of building a new deep-water port to take the Panamax ships. And what are we doing? Not much. The Grow America Act is totally stalled. It's not going anywhere right now. But we've got 23 days. So what are we proposing? Are we proposing something that will increase the rail capacity in the United States, that will combine rail, ports, and highways into a system to provide for goods movement, freight movement, integrated? No, we're not going to do such a thing. Other countries do it. Hey, but this is America. We just like to fall behind. So where are we with the Grow America Act? Well, some of us have introduced it. Some of us think we ought to do something like this, that we really ought to pay for our infrastructure. Oh, by the way, this doesn't raise gas taxes, doesn't raise diesel taxes, but it does require that those American corporations that have skipped out on their obligation to their home country bring their profits back to the United States and be taxed. So we maintain the existing excise tax on gasoline and fuel, and we pay for the rest of this by having American corporations pay their just due to this nation, by repatriating their foreign earnings, hidden off somewhere in Ireland or some other tax haven, not taxed, even though they're American corporations. Oh, some of this stuff is just too good. Apple, an American company, all of their manufacturing is overseas, and most of their profits are overseas also, because even though it's invented here, even though the software, even though the new equipment is invented in California, it is licensed in Ireland. And the profits stay in Ireland and are taxed there at a very low percentage. Not fair to America. So those profits would come home from other companies as well, and it would fill this $476 billion over 6 years. I want to just go through some of this, and then we'll wrap this up. The Grow America Act would provide $52 billion a year for highways. We're presently spending $41 billion a year for highways. So we're looking at something $11 billion more for highways. Maybe there won't be so many potholes. Maybe 1 out of 4 bridges in the United States will get repaired. Right now, they're deficient. They could fall down. They're insufficient in capacity. Maybe we can do that. Now, the Senate's done a little better. The Senate has passed a highway bill that's $46 billion a year, which is $5 billion more than we're currently spending, and that's good. It's a 5-year program that's only paid for in 3 years. Huh? How does that work? It doesn't. So, but it's a good start. But the Grow America Act, $52 billion a year. Anybody take buses in the United States? Anybody take BART in California? Or the metro system in Los Angeles, or here in Washington, the metro, or the subways in Chicago, New York, Atlanta, and so forth? That's called transit. We're presently spending about $10 billion, $10.6 billion a year on transit, supporting these transportation systems. The Senate bill adds about $2 billion, so they go to $12.5 billion. The Grow America Act, let's get on with it. Let's build those systems, $19 billion, without raising your fuel taxes. But if you happen to be those American companies that have skipped out on their obligation to this nation, they're going to wind up paying their fair share. So we go from 10.6 for transit, 10.6 billion annually for transit, to 19 billion in the Grow America Act. Remember, I put some of these trains up here. We presently spend $1.4 billion on our rail system, not the transit. This is the heavy rail system. The Senate would go to $2.2 billion, and the Grow America Act would go to $4.7 billion. Are we going to do this? Not likely. Not likely. We have perfected a childhood game here in the House of Representatives and the Senate. In fact, your American government has perfected this game. Something, when you didn't have a ball to kick around, you'd kick a can around. It's called kick the can down the road. We've perfected that. I think we've done it more than 30 times with transportation over the last decade and a half. We're highly likely to do it again, as the attention of America and the attention here amongst all of us is focused on the speakership fights, which will culminate at the end of October when the Speaker retires and we'll have a new vote. But in the intervening 23 days, are we going to focus on a transportation program for America, or are we going to focus on the internal politics of the House of Representatives? I'll tell you where I'd put my money. I'd put my money on the House of Representatives worrying about the internal politics of who's going to be the next leader and not paying attention to what America wants us to do. America wants us to pay attention to their needs, not to the internal politics of this place, but to the needs of America, American jobs for American workers. Can we build ships? Oh yeah, we can build ships. Can we build liquefied natural gas tankers? You bet we can. We're already building ships that are fueled by liquefied natural gas. We're doing it in San Diego. We know how to do this. We'd have to ramp up. We're not going to build 180 ships in 1 year, but we sure could over the next 2 decades. But maybe we care more about the petroleum industry than we do about the American worker and the American sailor and the shipyards of America. I'm afraid that's the way it's likely to be here. I notice that I'm joined here by an extraordinary woman from what used to be the manufacturing center of the United States, the Midwest, Ohio to be quite clear. Marcy Kaptur, I've been going on for more than I probably should have in time, but boy, these are important issues. These are really important issues. Please join us.
I thank the gentleman from California for being an extraordinary leader on Make It in America and restoring prosperity to all corners of this country. And the citizens of California really have sent an amazing congressman to speak on behalf of the nation and the importance of making items in America. It's probably a tragedy over the last 3 decades that we have accumulated over $9 trillion in trade deficit, which translates into lost wealth, lost income for America's families, and ultimately a budget deficit that we just can't get under control because people aren't earning enough and so much economic activity has been outsourced that there are many who've forgotten how much manufacturing actually matters. So I agree with the gentleman. Make it in America, grow it in America, use the technology of America to transform farm field products into ethanol and biodiesel. Let us use the sun. Let us invent our way forward to become energy independent, because at some point, not in our lifetimes, but at some point over the next 100 years, the oil wells will run dry, and even the natural gas fields currently being discovered in Ohio and Pennsylvania, which are mother lode supplies with horizontal drilling, those are finite and they will be gone. And so the world with many more people is going to have to figure out how to sustain life. And the gentleman has addressed many of these issues in terms of energy production, America's need to become energy secure, which would create prosperity here at home, and also all the investments of hard infrastructure on rail, on over-the-road air transportation. I have to add, obviously, our ports and my part of the country, the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway, so in need of infrastructure improvements, several $billion, actually. We are having a Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway meeting tomorrow morning, inviting in many of the business interests along the Seaway and looking for ways in our transportation bill where we can make more investment in that region so it can sing fully economically again. So I thank the gentleman for a moment here, and believe me, I unite with you in your efforts to make America fully strong again, and Make It in America can lead us down that path.
Well, you've been a leader on these issues for many, many years, and certainly in your territory of Ohio, you saw what happened when the manufacturing plants left. But they're coming back, and we can make policy to do that. I think you may have other things that you would like to bring to our attention. You're certainly welcome to do so. I think with that, it's time for me to say enough, or maybe I've said too much already. So I would yield back my remaining time, Madam Speaker, and let you go on to the next order of business.
The gentleman yields.